I'm here to talk about my expertise is government spending and government programs, and I'm here to talk about the fiscal costs of immigration, particularly low-skill immigration, immigrants who do not have a high school degree. I've analyzed in the United States there are about 4.5 million immigrant households headed by individuals that do not have a high school degree. About half of these are legal, about half are illegal. About a third of all immigrant households in the United States are headed by high school dropouts, compared to about 9% among the native population. I analyzed the fiscal cost of these households, that is, the total benefits that they receive minus the taxes that they pay in to the American government system. I cover a full range of all government benefits, including Social Security, Medicare, 60 different welfare programs, public schooling, police and fire. Don't have defense, I don't have interest, just things that are sort of directly consumed. The methods I use are exactly the same as those used by the National Academy of Sciences in their study of the fiscal impact of immigration 10 years ago, and the conclusions I get are basically the same. A lot of people say, well, immigrants get less of these benefits. All of my data is based on the immigrant self-report in the census of whether they got the benefit of it or not. If they said they got food stamps, then I count food stamps. If they don't get it, they don't get it. And what I find is that the typical low-skill immigrant household receives about $30,000 a year in benefits from federal, state, and local governments, and it pays in about $10,000 in taxes. It pays very little income tax, but it pays a significant amount of Social Security tax, a lot of sales and consumption taxes. That means that each of these households is receiving each year about $19,500 worth of benefits that they didn't pay for with the taxes that they paid in. Somebody else has to pay for that, and that somebody else is the American taxpayer. Overall, these households cost the taxpayer on net, benefits minus taxes is paid in, $89 billion each and every year. These households are in deficit, fiscal deficit, at every stage of the life cycle. From the moment they walk in this country and form a household, they begin to cost the taxpayers more in benefits than they pay back in taxes, and it kind of gets worse. By the time they get to retirement age, they're drawing down about $10 of benefits for every dollar that they're paying in. The net lifetime cost of a low-skill immigrant who comes into the United States and brings a family and remains here for life is around $1.2 million. That's something that where benefits in excess of the taxes that they pay into the system. And again, this really shouldn't be surprising. People say, how can they get $30,000 in benefits? Well, the average household in the United States gets around $22,000 in benefits. These households get an additional $10,000 or so from the 60 different means-tested welfare programs in the United States, and they pay very little in taxes. That's why they're in deficit. The reality is that the United States has a very generous system for supporting less advantaged workers. We don't require much from them. We provide basically free schooling, welfare, Medicare, Social Security. We can do that for individuals born in the U.S., but if you try to do that for a huge inflow of similar individuals from abroad, we simply can't afford that as a nation. When I look at this from the perspective of employers, employers say to me, well, we have to have this type of worker. We really need these, and I always say, well, look, each worker of this sort, of a very low-skill worker that you bring in from abroad, costs about net $18,000 in excess taxes. Do you as the employer want to pay that? And every one of them I've ever asked, no, I don't want to pay that. Well, who does? Who do you want to pay that? I don't care as long as it's not me. And so the reality is that we are irrationally subsidizing a lot of this employment through the general taxpayer in a way that really does not make sense. And if the employers had to bear the full fiscal cost of these choices, they would make different types of choices. Another topic that we're looking at here today is amnesty or earned citizenship or so forth. The most important thing to understand about that is that very few illegals are now elderly, and very few illegals have eligibility to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and SSI, Supplemental Security Income. If you grant amnesty and legal permanent residence, they will have access to those things. None of these, for most part, none of these individuals have ever been net taxpayers. When they hit retirement, which would occur about 20 years from now, they are going to draw down out of those programs. The net cost to the taxpayer of that, of granting amnesty to 9 million current adult illegals, about 20 years from now, will be $2.5 trillion net cost. That's with a T, $2.5 trillion in net costs. And those costs will slam into the system at exactly the point the Social Security system is starting to go bankrupt. Conclusion is that the current open border system is expensive. Guest worker programs that grant legal permanent residence would be even more expensive, and amnesty is very expensive. What we really need as a nation is an immigration system that allows perhaps some temporary workers without access to the welfare system, but in particular focuses on bringing in high-skilled workers who will pay much more in taxes than they take out in benefits.